I'm going to spoil some parts of the story, but I'll leave out important stuff, provide no context and only vaguely mention second half of X-Pac story, so you don't have to worry about spoilers. But if somehow knowing that you literally can't get Isgarren's feed pics is going to ruin your playthrough, it's already too late, timestamps are in the description. Anyhow, I even do care to give you a warning because unlike EOD and Giala, Soto's story isn't half bad. At its worst, it's serviceable, and at its best, captivating. At the very beginning, it introduces a little bit of wacky stealth mission, which, despite being not much more than a gimmick, is interesting and leads to something Soto did almost expertly. Villain introduction. Moments after first contact with a rift, we get sucked into Nios, aka Oklahoma. And meet our main majestic malevolent, Cerus, the crustacean one from the trailer, who proceeds to immediately invade our personal space. I don't know if that was supposed to be humoristic, intimidating or seductive, but it managed to juggle all three quite well. And from that point onward, tone and story of the expansion could realistically go in any direction between Doom and Dream Daddy without breaking my immersion. Overall, opening well handled. Which devs capitalized on further with our first fight against Cerus. And by fight I mean we receive overwhelming dose of Wpierdol and have to run and hide, recalling the stealth mechanic from earlier this episode. Which, by the way, we only managed thanks to Schizophrenia. Yes, besides having bloody radio in our bloody pocket, we now also have sassy voice in our head.
Then who are you?
Peter.
And what do you want, Patha? And now you choose silence.
Wait a sec. If Peta wants Cerus dead, that means Cerus is a dog. Which is hard to believe because I haven't seen anywhere during entire encounter any prompt to pet Cerus. Another expansion with missing features on launch. Anyway, we get to leave Oklahoma, meet wizards, and are introduced to the premise of the expansion, which is otherworldly shenanigans and trying to prevent them. Rest already boils down to significant spoilers. The story isn't that long nor filled with mind-blowing plot twists, but it's good enough to keep you interested and wanting for more. Story content 7 out of 10. Would be 8 if pacing wasn't interrupted every 15 bloody minutes with shoehorned rift hunts. Speaking of which, both actual maps are a feast for the eyes, and play well enough even for my standards. You may hear some streamers complain that the map metas are too easy, but that's mostly from people who said the same about Harvest Temple. Meta in Skywatch is simpler and of lesser scale, borrowing the must kill all simultaneously mechanic from Octovine. It was pretty fun, even when my framerate decided to eat shit and die because I'm playing on a fucking tortilla warmer. Amnetha's meta feels worse gameplay-wise, but is much grander spectacle. Visually, it's comparable to Dragon's End. However, it doesn't compare in terms of gameplay. Half of the meta you fly on a sky scale and eradicate Lovecraft's fetish instead of properly fighting the boss. And the other half you are busy with YMCA, spitting in things' eyes, or some other unnecessary bullshit mechanic that doesn't add to the encounter. Much flavor, very little substance. And finally, the rifts themselves. Tier 1s die too quickly. Tier 2s have bugged mechanics, and Tier 3s take forever to get to the boss. On top of which, anything above Tier 1 takes a consumable to find and activate. Consumable you need to craft, haul in your inventory, and which can cost plenty. Rifts could have been handled better. Strikes are a mixed bag. Cosmic Observatory is extremely straightforward. You could very probably take 9 random people, tell them nothing about the fight, go in without caring about paths, and still clear on second if not the first pull. The only knowledge necessary to clear it is stuck on Green Arrow. This strike was certainly created with newcomers in mind, and has certain newbie rescue mechanics, like the fact that middle AoE during ad phase pushes down players to the edge so they can be safely revived. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It is still satisfying to pull off. I had some players admit after clear that it was their first strike ever, and most of people that cleared it were eager to stay as group and attempt clearing Temple of Thebe. Speaking of which, Temple of Thebe is much more mechanic intensive. Cerus's attacks aren't one-shot KOs like Sabetha's Flame Wall, for example, but they have severe visible consequences of getting hit. His spinning wall, for example, corrupts your boons, and that signifies to the player that he needs to avoid the wall without outright killing him, which is far better learning experience than getting one-shot every time you make a mistake. Don't get me wrong, our main Majestic Malevolent doesn't shy of killing the players. It has mechanics that need to be correctly dealt with massive damage as punishment. A group of 10 hardened veterans could probably first time this encounter, but that's because Temple of Thebe rewards clean play. Every pull feels satisfying, no mechanic seems bullshit, and entire package encourages learning through having fun. Soto's strikes lag a little bit in difficulty, but that's to be fixed with arrival of challenge modes. As an entire package, maps, metas, rifts and strikes seem to be focused at introducing new players to endgame content, allowing them to get familiar with it and stop dreading endgame PvE. That's why rifts have tiers. That's why Cosmic Observatory is basically a training golem that fights back, and only Temple of Thebe is a proper encounter. And that is also why higher tier rifts and challenge modes are coming at another date. It is so that people who were introduced to strikes by Soto can get gently shoved around by Cerus before whoever is in charge lets the dog off the leash. If rifts weren't slightly bugged and map metas had a little bit more substance, Soto could be contender for highest quality open world experience. Unfortunately, combination of dozen microflows and letters TBC glued to nearly everything drops that fun aspect significantly. PvE gets 6 out of 10 from me, with potential for growth once they fix bugs and release missing content and features. Which leads me to final segment, the systems. Weapon mastery disappointed me slightly. I don't understand why current training system wasn't used at all. I already have the hero points and they don't do anything once you finish training elite specs. And if not part of the training system, why not mastery at least? Last caveat to address is VVizards VVault. Some people complain that VVizards VVault is worth less than previous login rewards, which isn't true. From pure gold perspective, VVault gives you 3 gold daily instead of 2, and that's only if you already exhausted cheaper option. Only people who lose on introduction of VVizards VVault are those who used 50 or more alternative accounts to farm login rewards. On top of which, value of some VVault rewards are out of my mind. The Leggy Starter box, for example, contains a choice of precursor, matching legendary gift, and randomly a gift of magic or might, rounding entire value of the box up to between 500 and 600 gold. Seems worth in my book. And no, there is no fear of missing out attributed to the vault. The rewards you didn't buy only move to Legacy tab, which until then remain empty, where you'll have them at slightly increased price. If that fills you with existential dread, you may have to visit a specialist and talk about your condition.
Tell me what's been bothering you?
Only gripe I have with the vault is that instead of presenting me the list of available dailies and saying pick 4, system chooses for me and expects me to have a Jedi foresight to tell what I'll want to do tomorrow. Because of that, entire thing gets 8 out of 10 and not more. That said, entire expansion gets Isgarren's feed picks out of 10, and see you in the next one, where we'll attempt to pet Cerus and survive. Crabface out.